So, hello and welcome to the Cinebums podcast. It's our 4th of July episode. We're going to be doing another of our top, just most American movies. We tend to do 10 of them. We've done this episode before,
We
actually.
tend as the last time we did it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We did this episode 2 years ago and we enjoyed it so much. If anyone remembers, that we decided to run it back with another 10, and we thought it'd be a good idea to just restate what each of our top 10 most American movies were from, I believe it was maybe 2021 or 2022. I feel like
21,
that,
yeah.
yeah, 21. I feel like that'd be good because then it just shows we've done this before, and then people won't be like, well, how could you not have this movie on your current one? It's like, well, we already did it, so this is an ongoing thing. This isn't like the definitive most, American movies list
Yep.
thing. So, I don't know. Do you have the list pulled up? If you want, you can read. We can read each other's like lists from that year.
I don't have
Oh,
the
okay.
list pulled up. Yeah.
All right,
How do you
I got.
how do you have the list? Is it on like Letterboxd or
Well,
something?
yeah. One of the main, one of the good things about the Cinebums Letterboxd page is being able to store some of our very memorable, iconic lists. So,
This is
yeah,
a
I
good
would
time to
love.
plug our Letterboxd then. Yeah,
Yes, if
go.
you ever want to know our lists, like our Sandman ranked or our top 10 most American movies, our 2020 movies, for instance, or other things like John's official Bond ranking, Luke's Tony Scott list, Luke's James L. Brooke list. It is all on the Cinebums letterbox at letterbox.cinebums.lists/page 2.
If they're watching in like 2 years from now, it might be on like page 3 or 4 by
I
now.
know,
So
but
just in
today,
case.
yeah,
Yeah.
right. We do tend to add them, but so here's
I found mine now. Yeah.
okay, yeah. So yeah, John, start us off with your top 10 most American movies. We can do a screen share for the viewers, the video watchers, so that everyone just knows what we've done before we get into what we're doing today.
First we have Borat, which yeah, I mean, I think this is a good this was a good pick. I tried to, have a little fun with it, and this one was, a foreigner coming to America to learn about our culture.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think it's a very American movie. And yeah, it shows, I think, the good and the bad
Mhm.
of our country. The next one is The Breakfast Club, which I remember talking about how like the high school
The
movie,
high school American movie,
it's
yeah,
very American. Yeah, and The Breakfast Club is one of those
yeah. Probably
OGs,
maybe the
maybe.
most revered. There's
Hmm.
like probably a top three most revered high school movies. It's probably like this and like Fast Times, and then Dazed and Confused,
Days
maybe.
of Confused. Yeah.
Also, Clueless is a very revered high school
Yeah.
movie, so it's subjective, but Breakfast Club's up there.
Driving Miss Daisy for the
Yes, we
subtle
all.
racism and
And Hans Zimmer.
yeah, and Hans. Rio Bravo.
Mhm.
So of course I think
we
I
we
wanted
each
to
had
include.
a Hawks on here because
Yeah. Hmm.
we know our shit. We wanted to flex our old
Uh,
school movie guns.
then Rocky, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah. Which
Uh,
actually, I want to say I like rewatched Rocky in like it was like a couple months ago, and I just kind of like, I know this is kind of obvious, but I think maybe Rocky can get like clumped up into the like I don't know, franchisee like
yeah.
blockbuster genre a lot, but the original Rocky is just a very good down to earth movie, for sure, and a very like just well written movie as well, and very and very like good thing about the American like the American struggle a lot. I think it like actually,
The underdog.
even though
Yeah.
Sly Stallone now has become like way too big and stuff, like originally then he really was like a dude of the people, and like the movie I think really shows kind of like that gritty side of like the like more like lower class struggling American, because that's what a lot of that
Hmm.
movie takes place doing.
Yeah, a classic everyman American underdog story,
Mhm.
Rocky. And then the next one was this is a generic pick. It's Forrest Gump,
Yeah.
um, for obvious reasons. And then after that, Truman Show, which we've talked about a lot. We did a Truman Show revisited too.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
Must have been, it was in your mind, I think, at the time.
yeah, definitely. Yeah. And Top Gun was
All right.
after that.
This is
And this was,
pre Top Gun Maverick, so
yep,
yeah.
pre
John's mom's
Maverick.
favorite movie.
Yep.
Not forget.
And then I know that that the top two are in the same order. Two is West Side Story.
I think that's one of the one things I got. Yeah.
Yep. Just classic American Tale. And then number one is National Treasure.
Right. Which
Of
this pick has
course.
made me want to rewatch. Made me want to rewatch National Treasure for the past 2 years, and eventually I'll do it.
Yeah, National Treasure. How can you get more American than
Yep.
stealing the Declaration of
Yeah,
Independence?
it's the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah.
They're gonna steal the Declaration of Independence.
Yeah. And I remember talking about in that episode, there's a great YouTube video of all the
How often
times
they
that
say it.
they
Yeah.
say the Declaration of Independence in that movie.
They
So
steal the
yeah,
Declaration.
well, yeah, that's my part one
All right.
of the most American movies. I'm satisfied with that list.
All right. All right. Here is mine. My number 10 is The Patriot. My number 9 is Doctor Strangelove. My number 8 is The Wolf of Wall Street. 7 is Blowout, which is such a like thing I would pick a couple years ago. Number 6 is Fast Five. My number 5 is The Avengers. This list is very all over the place. My number 4 is Howard Hawks' Red River. 3 is There Will Be Blood, which we just check out our episode with Simon on that one. Go into that thing in depth. My number 2 is Jaws, which is like I actually watched Jaws on the 4th of July last year, and I actually tend to often, and man, it's just the best 4th of July movie there is. It
Yeah,
really is.
clearly, yeah.
I love it. And then I also have Rocky on my list, but it's actually Rocky 4, which is the movie that is where Rocky fights a Russian who kills Apollo Creed, and most of the movie is like montage of working out with heavy 80s dance music, which is so American to me. Yeah. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's my top 10. I feel like I got through some obvious ones on that one. So like if anyone's wondering why those aren't on our list today, then that's why.
We each have 10 fresh most American movies.
Yep, this is the sequel, which is, as we know in America, sequel, as in Scream, they say you got to have a sequel. And like sequels have become a very American thing. So what we're doing is this is now a trilogy franchise that will have sequels and remakes. And maybe we'll even go back in time and we'll do an episode of most American movies where John and I are younger.
Yeah. And we'll do one where we go to space. And,
right.
Yeah.
Most American movies from the moon.
Yeah. Coming in 2042. All right, I'll start. Well, like last time, I do not have an official order to mine.
Okay.
So you're watching in real time
as I
of me
figure
make my
out.
decision. Yeah. Wow. What could I pick? All right. Well,
Either way, I'm gonna say all of them.
yeah.
It's just which one do I say now?
All right. What I'm gonna start with is a movie called North by Northwest. Um,
Ooh,
Alfred Hitchcock's North by
by the by
Northwest.
the by the fat British man.
Yes. And yeah, I mean, there are some really obvious reasons why this is
Yeah,
one of the most American movies. You have a whole huge scene
yeah,
set piece on
mhm,
Mount Rushmore.
yeah.
I mean, the bulk of like the third act of the movie, I think, is on location at Mount Rushmore and at their
Right.
like
Yeah.
their cool mansion they have
Hmm.
on the top of the mountain.
Hmm.
And yeah, and this also just takes place kind of across the U.S. It's
Yeah,
starting in
for
New
sure.
York at the UN. So there's a lot of just different like U.S. landmarks that take up this movie, and yeah, starting at the UN, and then I think
Yeah.
Grand Central Station, getting to
Hmm.
Chicago,
Hmm.
and then of course ultimately getting to Mount Rushmore and having that
And even
great
in the
ending
even like
end
the
scene.
plane scene, like where they
Yeah,
go through the cornfields, you feel like you're in, I don't know, some like Kansas or something, just some
yeah.
like classic American Great Plains state.
I forget where they're at for that. Maybe Indiana or something. If they,
Would not be surprised at all.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um. So yeah, just a great movie that a great
Yeah.
spy
Hmm.
kind of movie where
Hmm.
you are going from across these different
Going all over the place around
U.S.
America.
landmarks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. With one of the greatest American actors ever, for sure. Um, and also like a very much like a prelude to something like, you know, James Bond and stuff like that, which,
Yeah.
even though that's about a British man in a British spy organization, James Bond is kind of American to me also. Like at least just in the sense that it's a franchise and like all the
Hmm.
music, the cool, the nature of it. Um, yeah, yeah, North
Yeah.
by Northwest is a good pick.
Yeah.
All right, my number 10, I think we've talked about. I've talked about briefly before on the podcast. It's Tony Scott's Unstoppable, the movie about
Nice.
Denzel Washington and Chris Pine, who are two of the probably like best like modern American movie star types trying to stop a train, and they're somehow very good in this movie at playing very very like American working men, even though they're clearly movie stars. And so is everyone in this movie. Like that's kind of what's kind of amazing about it, is that it's very much a movie about like the working men and fighting like, like the people who are like head of large corporations and have like corporate interests and stockholders to please and publicity to think about. And and you have people like, Rosario Dawson, who's really good in this movie at playing like, I don't even know what her role is, but she's kind of like a train organizer lady. Something that someone like Rosario Dawson would not be doing, like a job that someone like Rosario Dawson would not be doing at all. But she's like doing a really great job at it. And yeah, I just feel like Tony Scott is like just a great like American film. Is he even American? Because he's
I
Ridley
don't.
Scott's like brother.
Yeah, I thought they were both English.
I keep saying so many things are American that are not. Um,
Yeah,
it
he's
just sounds good
English.
to say. Yeah, he's English, he's English, but nevertheless, he makes a lot of American
He
films.
does. Yeah.
Um, yes, he made Top Gun.
Top Gun. Yeah.
He makes True Romance. You know, he's you know, he works with Denzel Washington on Man on Fire, Deja Vu, you know, Pelham 123. You know, he's
Beverly Hills
in the
Cop too.
yeah, and
You know,
he's in the American movie genre, and like I think this is for me his best movie, and it is just it like not only makes you feel kind of really good about like cheering for the working class American, but it's also just like so exhilarating and such a fun time. And yeah, that's Unstoppable.
all right, moving on to number 9. Let's see. You know what? I am gonna go with American Psycho.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and this
Another
may
one that on rewatch I'll say hits. Like I not even like I fully rewatched it, but like sometimes it's on TV, um, and I'm like watching it. I'm like, God, this is like the funniest. Like this movie rules, you know. Like, but it's not one
yeah,
I've sat down really and rewatched. But I yeah, American Psycho is awesome.
yeah. I think I watched it again like last year for the first time in a while, and really loved it because I remember the first time I watched it was like for like college,
Yeah,
getting
yeah,
really into like Fight Club and
exactly.
Reservoir Dogs
Yeah,
and American Psycho.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I mean, I think this is I've never read the book, but I've heard the book is really goes even more into this like world of these wealthy Wall Street
Mhm.
douchebag finance guys.
Douchebag finance guys.
Douchebags. These douchebags with the striped suits
The
and the business
douchebags on Wall
cards.
Street that killed the women after work, you know.
Yeah. They would chop up women with an axe and listen to Huey Lewis. Doing this and that. Yeah. And yeah, I feel like I think every country probably has their own version of these guys, these
Yeah,
finance
for
guys.
sure, for sure.
Um, like I know in Japan they talk about the salary men and stuff like
Oh,
that.
the
But
salary man. Ah.
yeah. But yeah, this is like just such like an extreme version of this finance bro. And I feel like that is just like a very like American thing. Like we talked about Wolf of Wall Street last
Yeah,
time too. Is it's like these guys in suits who are like very professional looking, and then there's all this like crazy shit under
right,
the surface that
right.
goes into it too.
They're like yeah, they have the this appearance, but they're really like, I mean, in each Wolf of Wall Street, it's like drug and sex, degeneracy. There's like an element to their behavior that is very much outside the social norms, even though maybe their job and salary and appearance is like what people are aspiring to be. I'm about to go on a Wolf of Wall Street rant. This is not about this episode's not about Wolf of Wall Street, but like, yeah, American, and then in American Psycho, it's just like, yeah, he's a murderer.
Yeah, it's very superficial and
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and materialistic, narcissistic. Obviously, it's all like they even go down to the business card font and color. It's
Right.
just going into like the extreme details of what these guys obsess about. Yeah, Christian Bale's super funny in this too. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe like I think maybe like it's his best role for sure, and I always forget about it. Actually, weirdly enough.
Yeah.
Also, Christian Bale ate at the restaurant I work at one day. And,
Oh, nice.
he was sitting at a table, and he had long hair, and I was like kind of in awe, to be honest. Like he's just has the look of a guy who's belongs in his position, you know. I was like, holy shit, this guy, yeah, just
Wow.
what a handsome guy. He looks, yeah.
This is like a new segment on a new weekly segment is
Right.
who did
Yeah.
Luke see at his restaurant?
My number 9 is Caddyshack. How often have you seen Caddyshack? I haven't even seen it that much.
Me neither. It's not like
Yeah,
a movie that I don't have like a fond like memory of like watching Caddyshack when I was like I remember watching it when I was younger and not
yeah.
really doing it for
See,
me. Yeah.
see me neither, totally. But like, here's the thing, like, here's why it's like kind of on my list. Like, I like, I've definitely, it's been one of those things where like it's like the older generation, say like our dads, they bring it up. They're like, oh, you gotta see Caddyshack.
Yeah.
It's all about Caddyshack, or like they're like, you gotta see Airplane, like that type of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I feel like it's like Caddyshack's like maybe like their generation's like whatever our thing is, like our Will Ferrell movie, our Step
You got to see
Brothers,
Step
like
Brothers.
yeah,
Yeah.
our Step Brothers, or our like Super Bad, or
Super bad. Yeah.
whatever ours is. Theirs was
Hmm.
Caddyshack. And yeah, for sure, like there has been so many times over the years where I feel like Caddyshack was on some holiday on TV, maybe 4th of July, maybe another one, like where you get like where it turns into a long weekend, and like my dad is like, we gotta watch Caddyshack, it's the best. And like I'm always kind of like tuning into it, and I'm always never as into it as him. I'm never as
Yeah.
like, tell he has all these like jokes memorized, and he's just and all the memories maybe it brings him. um I will admit there have that, like, I did watch it one time. I'm like, I kind of get it. This is pretty damn funny. Bill Murray is acting so stupid, and how could you not laugh at Rodney Dangerfield? Also, like, he's just
Yeah.
walking around like the golf course, and just at such a fiery rate, just dissing everyone. I mean, I can't like not see the greatness of Rodney Dangerfield in this movie too. But yeah, for sure, I'm always, for the most part, a little like personally maybe underwhelmed, and maybe just because the era of it doesn't hit my funny bone necessarily, because I'm so used to uh like I said, humor like The Office, or How Much I Love You Man with Paul Rudd and Jason Segel and stuff like that.
Hmm.
Sarah Marshall, blah blah blah. That's like more what I'm used to, the type of humor. But I can't help but see the classic, the classic pastime effect of Caddyshack, and I think maybe because my dad's generation grew up with it, also I just feel it's so American. And because when did Caddyshack came out in like the 1980,
80 something. Yeah.
yeah, right. And it is like it's Chevy Chase and Rodney Dangerfield and Bill Murray, and it's like you got like so much, is it National Lampoons or no? That's not National
I don't
Lampoons.
think it is, but it's like at National
It's like
Lampoon adjacent.
it
Like
almost
it's the
feels, yeah,
same.
right. It feels like early SNL-ish in a way.
Yeah.
Um and I don't know, and like it almost feels like it's taking place over like a 4th of July weekend almost, or something like that, at
Hmm.
this golf course. When even though I don't think it is necessarily. Like I said, I don't even know the movie that well. Like I said, I haven't even seen this movie,
Yeah.
but I go on and try to explain it this whole time. That's why I'm struggling so much. But yeah, I don't know. Caddyshack just is like, to me, just such an American movie, basically.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's definitely worthy of the
Harold
list.
Ramis.
Did he direct it?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's just it's got all those like American comedy like icons in there.
yeah,
And yeah, it's just such like a part of it's almost like people like Caddyshack for like the like culture like cultural impact of it more so than even like liking the movie as
right,
much.
right.
All right, you know what, for number 8 I'm gonna go with Fargo.
Ooh, cool.
So yeah, this one also stood out to me as just like a I was thinking of movies that take place in a very like distinct region of the US
Hmm.
that maybe doesn't get as much, it's not New York or LA, it's
Right,
middle of
right,
the country but a
right,
very distinct place like
right.
Minnesota.
Hmm.
And yeah, I actually when I had like a 10-hour flight recently, and on these flights I can't watch like anything new really.
Oh yeah, no, I've had the
It's
same thing
you
happen
know,
before. It's actually very helpful to on flights when you're frustrated because we have to sit and coach because we're poor, John.
just
And it sucks, you
uncomfortable.
know.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that is like, yeah, that's where you really feel that you're at the bottom is when you have to
yeah.
sit and coach. And you're like, why didn't I make more money? Why? And like, um, but yeah, like it, and like I once rewatched. I was like, I gotta just rewatch something, you know. So I put on The Departed because I know The Departed so well, and it's so fun and
It's
easy,
long too. That's
and it's
good. Yeah.
long, and the flight was, it was like that. Yeah, so I agree. Same thing for me.
Yeah. 'Cause I've tried because a lot of times they have like fairly recent movies on there too, like
Right, right.
um just out of theaters.
Yeah, like something like
Um
Air would be something you'd watch on a flight
yeah,
for sure. You
that
know.
was on there. Yeah.
Yeah.
um but so yeah, I just was like, I'm picking things that I've seen multiple times that I'm not
Yeah.
like, I'm not going to care about paying attention as much.
Right.
And yeah, so I watched Fargo, and of course, like always, really loved it. But yeah, it also, just being from the Midwest too, it brings back just these
Yeah.
this nostalgia for like the
Mhm.
Midwest
Mhm.
lifestyle and everything.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, it's it's set in mostly in Minnesota, and has to deal with these smaller town, just suburban people who kind
Yeah.
of get trying to pull off this big crime, which then I think also does happen in these like communities where it'd be like,
Right.
oh wait, Mr. Wilson down the street,
Yeah.
he hired goons to like kidnap his
Right.
wife. Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So it all feels very like very American in
Yeah.
a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
No, it's good that you brought up a Cohen too, because I feel like on our last list we didn't have any Cohens, and like, man, like, I mean, you gotta like on an American movies list shout out like, you know, the Cohens for sure at some point,
Yeah.
definitely, because they're two of the best for us in the American when it comes to American filmmakers. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of Cohen's, I don't, you might have seen this trailer, but I just saw it the other day when seeing Asteroid City. There's a new Ethan Cohen movie coming out
Oh,
that he
not Joel
wrote.
Cohen, Ethan Cohen.
Yeah,
So it's
Ethan.
really them like separating, huh?
Yeah, yeah. And it does not look anything like what you'd expect from an Ethan Cohen movie. It has like Beanie Feldstein in it, and
Mhm.
the girl from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, where she like hitchhikes with Brad
Margaret
Pitt.
Qualley or
Yes,
whatever.
that's her
Yeah.
name. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and it's like kind of like the it looks very like chaotic and funny. Um,
Interesting.
but it doesn't look like a Coen Brothers movie, but it's yeah,
Okay.
Ethan Cohen. So anyway, I saw that trailer and was excited to see that.
Cool. Cool.
But yeah, Fargo. It's just a
Yeah.
great movie set in clearly the Coens have their Minnesota connections, so
Yeah. Yeah.
the Minnesota-ness of it is off the charts. But yeah, I just think it's a great American movie too.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get to what you're saying too about like the whole real American place, but you know, it's kind of the overlooked
Hmm.
American place. Yeah, because we live in this like world of like this elitist world of like nothing happens outside of the coasts or the big cities and stuff in
Yeah,
America. Like you said, like New York and LA. You know what I mean? Like Marriage Story is all about like, are we gonna live in LA or New York? You know, there's so much
yeah.
like
Hmm.
about like for the people who are cultured or whatever, or the people who are artists or the people who are ambitious, it's all about that. But then there's like this whole other side to it, and like, you know, we're from that like part, one of those sides. And like for instance, when I visited, I remember I used to think Chicago was like such a big and busy place, and then I went back like last year after like living in LA for a little bit. And I was like, wow, what a like chill, down to earth like place this is. I feel like I'm in like Home Alone or something right now, or like in a John Hughes movie and stuff like that. And yeah, and like sometimes like when you go to um Wisconsin, I feel like, or even like north parts of like, say if you go to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, that you get those like accents that are like, wow, you sound like you're from Minnesota or something like that. Or even like some
Hmm.
people in Illinois, I was like, you sound
Yeah.
like you talk like you're a Minnesotan, but you said you always lived in Illinois, and like
Hmm.
people have that like way about them there in that
Yeah.
just in that area. I feel like it's not exclusively Minnesota also.
I think it's definitely like there's that similar Midwestern accent, like
Right.
Chicago. It's the Chicago, I feel like, is kind of dying out a little bit. There's less and less people with that thick accent, but like
Yeah. It's mainly like
Chicago, Wisconsin,
the
Minnesota.
South Side, the White Sox guys, or
Yeah. Um, and yeah, I feel like what I like about Chicago too is that it is like that big city, but it is still like
yeah,
Midwestern. So it
it
does kind of
is.
have like that like friendly,
Right.
smaller town feel,
Yeah.
somewhat. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and like there's also that element to in Fargo where like the characters are like, I don't know, they remind me, like I have family, you know well now my cousin Brendan, who's been on the Cinebums a couple of times, and so I have a lot of family in Michigan, which is, to me, Michigan in a lot of ways is its own thing, kind of like how you could say Minnesota. Like I'd love to see personally like a Fargo type movie about people in Michigan, but like, so a lot of my dad's family are from like these like small towns in Michigan that you'd personally be like, I would never want to live there, or like you overlook it and stuff like that. But like there's something like always when I would visit them over the years that would be like, wow, these people are just so simple, and they could just like talk about nothing for days. You know what I mean? Like they're
Yeah.
like so interested in just such like little things that like say other people in like more workaholic fast-paced areas would just be like, like listen to them like, talk, or listen to these people in Fargo behave, and they'd be like, oh, kill me now. But what I love about Fargo is like that it like makes you love all these characters, and it makes
Yeah.
you find them so interesting and charming, and adds to the tone and humor, and like makes this crime story, gives it the character that it has. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just like the scenes with Margie and any of her fellow like cops or her
Yeah.
husband, like it's
Right.
just,
Right. Right.
I love those moments when she's just like in bed talking to her husband about his
Yeah.
painting. So she goes through this like crazy day, and then they just talk about him painting these ducks to try and get on a stamp.
Right. Right.
And
Yeah.
it's just so like sweet. Yeah.
Yeah, there's like a beauty and sweetness to these people who we don't think about in America a lot, like these small town people who are just simple.
Yeah. The older I
And,
get, the more I appreciate those like smaller
mhm,
communities. Yeah.
yeah. All
Shout
right,
out to the
Fargo.
Midwest. That's Fargo.
Yeah, for real, for real. Okay, so my number 8 is American Graffiti by George Lucas, which is a movie I don't feel like we talk about often here, but I love American Graffiti actually. Yeah, like I think I've always found it so interesting that the creator of Star Wars um, made this for before.
Yeah.
It's such a different thing, but it really shows that I think like George Lucas. Like if you ever like watch interviews with George Lucas, he always talks about how like I think like Star Wars sucked up so much of his like life and like his creativity and like what he originally, like it's really changed what he originally wanted to be as a filmmaker, that I don't think he ever really truly got to do what he wanted to do as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
Um like cuz he started off, with like um like the De Palmas of the world, the Scorseses, the Coppolas, and he was in that group. and he was actually known as like, one of them really, like, Coppola believed in like George Lucas's talent a lot, and I think Coppola might have even I like he might have co-produced American Graffiti, as like I don't know if it's George Lucas's first feature or not. His first feature might have been so
THX, yeah.
THX is 1971. American Graffiti is 73. Yeah, but yeah, George Lucas was always known for also like, he was known for being like a car. He loved cars. He's a big car guy, which is why this movie mainly features people driving around talking in cars in this very like 50s America, which is one of the reasons why I picked it. I love like Back to the Future 1955. I always have this nostalgia for America in the 50s, and like how, like, Rebel Without a Cause too, and like the ideas of America that people had at the time before the 60s really turned everything over, and made them question everything about that. And like this movie is like Dazed and Confused before Dazed and Confused. It's just people driving around in cars, talking, and it has a great soundtrack of 50s music, which I just love. Like every needle drop in this is just so great, and it feels like it's just like a great hangout movie from 1973, and one that you're like, I can't believe this was made by George Lucas every time. Yeah, American Graffiti just is great.
Yeah, nice. I need to get back into American Graffiti sometime. Yeah, I remember watching it and enjoying all those like 1950s vibes of it and everything. It's interesting. I wonder what George Lucas like what movies George Lucas would make if he hadn't done Star Wars.
Yeah. No, yeah, in a lot of interviews you can tell that George Lucas is like kind of frustrated by the success of Star Wars, and that like it became what it was because he wasn't able to do what he ended up doing. And he actually, if you like, when he talks about Star Wars, he like the original, at least, that he made, it like he really approaches it with like a very like artistic sense. And it's funny because Star Wars ended up becoming incredibly popular, and like and so it was not interpreted in maybe the like his thought process of making it at all. And I feel like when you maybe watch the prequels, you can see that like maybe George Lucas is pouring a lot of that unfulfilled ego directorially into those movies, and it is why they are so controlled in a maybe a lot of times not good way.
Yeah. All right, for my number 7, I'll go with another movie that has American in the title.
All right.
And it's called American Movie.
Still haven't seen it.
Yeah, this is a documentary, not a movie, but yeah, Luke, you got us. I think you'd really like this movie. I guess speaking of the Midwest, maybe I'm getting too nostalgic, but I didn't realize this is also another Midwestern movie.
Let's move back to Wheaton and get an apartment together.
Yeah, let's bring the podcast back to the Midwest, back to where it started. Yeah, and yeah, maybe that's what I'm subconsciously saying. But American Movie is a documentary set in Wisconsin, small town Wisconsin, which yes, as you have heard now, Luke and I have a lot of connections to the Midwest, and I have a lot of family in Wisconsin and Minnesota, and so yeah, these characters, like in Fargo, also feel like very familiar. Too, and these are whereas Fargo is like small town Midwestern people who are just living their simple lives for the most part. An American Movie is people in small town Wisconsin, but it's about
They have
this,
dreams. Yeah.
yeah, about this guy with big dreams of becoming a big movie director,
Mhm.
and all of like the passion and effort that he puts into that.
Right.
It's really inspiring
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
nice to see. And at the end of the day too, there's also just like you know, there's also like that Midwestern family element of like this guy who's really trying to like make a name for himself, and then his family is besides his mom who's very encouraging and helpful, his family is really like, yeah, I don't know what he's doing, like he wants to make these movies and stuff, but
Right.
it just
Right.
doesn't seem like it's going to happen. But he's still, he's still persevering, and then he's got this great friend, Mike Shank, who
Like his loyal compadre.
yeah, no matter whoever doubts him and thinks that he's wasting his time, there's always Mike's always there to help out. And I think he even says something kind of like that. He's like, there's always Mike, and it's like a beautiful moment.
Yeah.
um but yeah, but this is it's obviously called American Movie, but I think the reason that it was titled that is maybe because it's like this, you know it's about the American dream, that no matter where
Mhm.
you come from, a
Yeah.
small town in
Yeah.
the Midwest, but you have big
Yeah.
dreams that
Yeah.
yeah. And just about like the passion of like wanting to make something or
Yeah.
create, and
Right.
it not necessarily going everything going your way, but still just having the drive to do that. So
Yeah. And
yeah.
and there's like something way more interesting to me about like you're saying, him doing it in a town, in like a small town or somewhere in the like Midwest or wherever he is, like where no one is doing it and where it's not the norm at all, and
Hmm.
like that makes like him wanting to do it that much more interesting because he's up against that, you're up against
Yeah.
more, like yeah, I remember when I first was thinking like I want to like do this or this, like and one of the things was like I want to make movies, and I was still like in I think I was living back home in Glen Ellen for one of the multiple times I moved back home to Glen Ellen, and like even in like a town like that, like it's a really weird like thing to want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is like it's not the norm at all, like I don't think I remember, say like when we went to high school, I don't remember anyone being like, yeah, I want to make movies or this, like no one really. It's all like so traditional, and so like where you are can really impact your headspace of like how different you can feel of wanting to do it. And what's funny is now I live in LA, and like where like every other person you meet does like acting or dancing, or like is a musician and a photographer and does all, it's also the norm. So
Yeah.
um it's nice because you do feel like more normal, but like I guess I know what it feels like to be like feel like you're the only one, and it's just you with like goals and dreams in your head. And I guess how hard that can feel, you know what I mean? Because like no
Yeah.
one understands, so I really need to get to this movie.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you would like it a lot. Yeah. But yeah, that's exactly what he goes through. But he
Right.
stays away from feeling like that, like guilt, or like that he's the one that's wrong because everybody else is doing one thing, and he's different. Yeah, it's yeah, just a really great documentary.
I'll admit I'm going with this movie partly because when I make these American movie lists, and this kind of goes with my list from last year as well. It so does. I'm looking at it. It's really hard to make. I find it when you're making an American movie list, you end up making a list of a bunch of movies with only white people in them. And so I didn't want my list to be 100% just white, but it's really hard when you think I'm gonna make an American movie list to not make just a list with all these white ass movies. And so because that's what you think of first.
Hmm.
And so number 7, I went kind of hard in the other direction. I did Spike Lee's Malcolm X.
Oh, that
Yeah.
is very American. Yeah.
Yeah. Because I was like, all right, let's not have just a bunch of white movies for one. And like, so Spike Lee's Malcolm X is based off of Malcolm X's autobiography, which I read, and um, the book really changes the way you think, as like, man, as inclusive as anti-racism as you think you are. You will never realize how like, I don't know, more anti-racist you can be, and but more how anti-white you could be if you read Malcolm X's autobiography. Yeah, I mean, like, everyone in school is taught about like Martin Luther King Day, and they reveal Martin Luther King and MLK. But I would almost say like Martin Luther King is like maybe like a Disneyed out version of Malcolm X. You know what I mean? Like,
Kind of. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, like the child friendly Malcolm X, when Malcolm X is like almost like, I get why they don't teach kids that, because it's confusing. It'd be confusing, but
Yeah.
like, and they're not ready. But I really do think everyone should probably learn about Malcolm X,
Hmm.
primarily, as much as, if not more than, Martin Luther King. Um, and yeah, so this book really hits hard, and it really changes the way you think about the whole racial social construct. And it's extreme, but it's in a good way. And Spike Lee's adaptation of it is really good. It's really ambitious. It's probably one of Spike Lee's best movies. It's like a few hours long, so you gotta have time for it. But him and Denzel Washington go so hard at making this movie, and it's so good. It's so good. Has all that Spike Lee style you want. And it's so worth the watch. Yeah, it's just such a masterpiece in my opinion. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's like, how could you not have a movie with like the greatest African American, and or just like two of, not even just about being African American, just two of the greatest director actor duos in Spike Lee and
Yeah.
Denzel together. So in probably one of the movies where they go is like the hardest. So I that's why I picked Malcolm X.
Yeah. You definitely have to include Spike Lee
Yeah.
on a list like this. Yeah. Nice.
And that being said, my next 6 films are all white.
Perfect. Finally, yeah. It's like, can we finally get back to the white movies? So now this is number 6, King of Comedy,
Ah, sweet. Yeah.
Martin Scorsese.
I also
Yeah.
rewatched this in the last year.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Another classic American director actor duo
Yeah.
of Scorsese
Yeah.
and De Niro. And yeah, I think that this is this whole dynamic in this movie is very much an American thing, is
Yeah.
sort of like a fan becoming obsessive with their
Yeah.
idol in a way.
Yeah.
Think of obviously John Lennon was English, but his
Right.
murderer was
Right.
American. Like, you
Is
know,
that is this does this have a connection to that at all with John
uh,
Lennon?
I don't know, because I think this was before.
Because when you brought that up just now, I was like, "Whoa,
Oh
wow,
no,
that's like so similar." I guess.
actually, the King of Comedy is 1982, and John Lennon was killed in 1980, I think. So, I mean,
Maybe.
maybe, yeah. But it's like, I think that
I mean,
and
yeah, how
another,
could it not? How could it not? You know, like one
it
of the
had to have
biggest things
something.
to happen. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And
yeah,
Scorsese's a huge Beatles guy, so I'm sure
yeah,
maybe he didn't make it for that, but I'm sure that was in his head. You know, as he was making it.
totally, yeah. And I think too, like, I know Carly recently watched that movie Selena, um, about the
I've seen that movie a ton.
Yeah. So I mean, that's another. I mean, I guess that wasn't necessarily a fan. That was someone who
Worked
worked for
for
her,
her. Yeah.
but it's still kind of like an
She was like
obsessive.
trying to like, yeah, I think she wanted to please her a lot, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And she wanted to, because at the end of the movie, the woman who killed Selena is like, feels really bad and considered her her best friend. She like revered her and stuff like that. So I think there
Yeah,
was some like craziness involved, you know?
yeah. And I mean, yeah, I just think that is kind of just the obsession with celebrities or idolizing the like aspirations to sort of be a star too, which is
Yeah,
very American.
yeah,
Trying to like giving people this false hope that they could be anything they want. They could be a big
right,
star or whatever. Then like it just starts that
right, right,
obsession.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everyone like grows up here with that Disney belief of that Martin Luther King was a good person. No, I'm just kidding. No, like the Disney belief that we are all the most special person in the
Yeah.
room. You know, like that we are the one. You know,
We're the
like
main
that.
character.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, I think that there is like we do grow like America. You can do more here than almost anywhere. We like you do
Hmm.
grow up with like the we do grow up with like freedoms that not a lot of people have, and you can do like what you want. But like I think everyone grows up with like thinking of the highest of ceilings that
Yep.
they can be Johnny Carson, or they can be like I don't know, whoever your like person is, you know what I mean? You can be that person you see on TV who is like selling you on this idea of like being the richest, the most famous, having a house that overlooks everything, and being essentially on top of everyone, essentially winning at capitalism, you know, like,
Hmm.
and if you know, like, I don't know, it's complicated, but that's kind of what everyone grows up with.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that touches the, King of Comedy definitely touches on that. And
Yeah, no, like this King of Comedy is like a Scorsese gem that, you know, I forget about a lot, but I'm always like, ah, that one is so good too. All right, my number six is kind of a weird one, maybe. It is James L. Brooks's As Good as It Gets. Um, with Jack Nicholson at the front cover. He's holding this dog and just giving that big old Jack smile to it. And starring him and Helen Hunt.
Yeah.
I think I picked this one mainly because I wanted to have like a Jack movie on here because I think he's our greatest American actor maybe ever. I mean, and I kind of just I really dig this era of Jack Nicholson. Like it's not his like where he did his best work, obviously. But like 2000s Jack Nicholson, um, where you always saw him at the Lakers games, where he was, I think, known for like having sex with every girl. I think,
Oh, really?
I think, yeah. And just kind of known for being like Playboy Jack Nicholson, that type of thing.
Hmm.
And he was in, but he was still like churning out like quality movies, like weird movies, kind of like As Good as It Gets, Something's Got to Give, stuff like that. Um, but and he was in that like hunk Jack Nicholson sort of like rom-com-ish phase, I think is more so what it was. But um doing it at like such a high level, like not the McConaughey level because he wasn't McConaughey, he's Jack Nicholson, so he's doing it at such a high level. And James L. Brooks makes like these kind of weird, like always an Oscar nominated American movies. And this one is kind of just about this guy, kind of just this asshole who is also charming. And I think America, that's what America is. Is this asshole that just gets away with it because it's also just very charming. And um yeah, this guy who just kind of ends up like changing and falling for this woman with her kid.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, this is I did not expect this to make the list, but I'm glad you brought it up.
I went with my gut, you know. That's what you got to
This
do. Just listen to your gut.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this movie quite a bit on the podcast, and yeah, I like it. I think
Yeah, it's good. It's a good one.
this is another one I need to rewatch because I've
Same,
definitely talked about
same.
this before, but we watched this in my like psych class in high school.
Yeah, this is what OCD is like, or whatever.
Yeah.
I do think like while it's ridiculous in Hollywood, like as good as it gets, like I think Jack Nicholson is playing a very real, like person, you know, of
Hmm.
who has like obsessive compulsive disorder and is also a lot of people who are well off. You'll see like they also are very controlling because they're used to having things their way. And I
Hmm.
think like that is kind of where this is coming from a little bit.
It's just I think this is sort of the Jack Nicholson that people, when they do an impression of Jack Nicholson, this is kind
Mhm.
of that era of it
Yeah,
too.
yeah, for sure.
I'm Jack Nicholson. You better watch your ass. You better watch your ass, Batman.
So we're on number 5 now, and I added a few extras just in case, and now I'm getting to that point where I have to decide what to cut out.
Okay. That's what you're always staring at this whole
Yeah.
this whole episode.
And watching me make cuts in real time. Yeah.
Whoa.
My number 5, I am going to go with Tropic Thunder.
Oh, hell yeah.
So yeah, you just have this big hotshot movie film crew going ignorantly into this area where they also have
Yeah,
no idea that this is like a real environment where real shit's
right.
happening, that
No
they're in
one's
like,
researched the area they're filming at all. They just drop them in
yeah,
a war zone, basically.
yeah, there's a guy doing blackface, which is
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
also a very
A
American thing.
historically American. So you do have some, you do have some, shed
That's
some light
right.
on African Americans in your list, John.
Yeah, see, yeah, what are you talking about? And it also just has like a huge cast of great like American comedy guys from around this time. Ben Stiller, Jack Black.
Yeah, yeah. No, I always will put this in like top 5. It's untouchable in the top 5 of like 2000s comedies. Like
Yeah,
absolutely.
really great. Yeah. And I feel like this was just such a big deal when it came out too. I think people maybe didn't
Yeah,
know what to expect, and then it kind of blew them
yeah,
away.
yeah.
Um,
And people will never forget it. If they rewatch it, they'll bring it up to someone, you know.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I felt like it was a good one for the list. It's my number 5.
All right, my number 5, I've talked about a little bit on the podcast too. It's Peter Bogdanovich's Paper Moon,
Oh,
who's a director who was just very, he was just very known for loving. Peter Bogdanovich was very well known for like loving the classic American movie directors. Like he just revered John Ford and Hawks and all those guys. And you could just see it also, especially too, how true he was to the form in all of his work. And out of the Peter Bogdanovich films I've seen, I think Paper Moon is definitely my favorite. Not to say that I have many more to see, and not also all the other ones I've seen are right up there as well. Like I love The Last Picture Show and What's Up Doc. But
Mm.
there's so many others he's made that I have yet to see as well. And Paper Moon is just, it's such a masterpiece, and it is also about like the Dust Bowl kind of area of America during the Great Depression. And it's kind of about like a man and a child who are being like con artists, which seems like a classic American thing. It's funny, it's sad, it's just a great story overall, and just hits home every time. And like I can't just help but think about how American it is as I'm watching it as well.
Is that Ryan O'Neal?
Ryan O'Neal, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, the dynamic between him and his kid. That seems like a very American thing too.
Well, as I'm looking at it now, I believe the kid is played by Ryan O'Neal's actual daughter.
Oh, is it Tatum O'Neal?
Tatum O'Neal, but they don't act, they're
Hmm.
not actually like that's not actually in the movie. They're not like, that's not actually his daughter in the movie. They just kind of like
Oh, I don't remember that, I
they
guess.
find each other. Yeah, they find each
Got
other.
it,
But
okay.
they play father and daughter just to get by, though.
Got it. That's right. Okay. Then I will go with Network.
Oh, cool. Yeah, this is one I considered for sure.
Nice. Yeah. I wondered if you might have this on your list too. This is one you definitely encouraged me to watch at one
Yeah.
point. And
Yeah, and like I wanted to have movies from that era on here, and I have like already like American Graffiti and Paper Moon, and I have like a couple more actually too, but like Network was another from this era that I was thinking about doing.
yeah. And another sort of classic American director
Yeah.
to 12 Angry Men, Dog Day Afternoon.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
some other classic American movies. 12 Angry Men would have been a good one too.
Yeah.
Just this scenario of this anchor just going crazy after a while. And I think
Right.
I don't know, when I first saw it, it just kind of made me think of just like nowadays, I just like can't watch the news at all.
Right. Yeah.
You can't take in so much news because it'll just drive you crazy. And
It really will. It's not good.
yeah. And then
I'd
of
rather
course,
not know what's going on.
right. Yeah. And it's like I was just thinking about it too, with that Titanic submarine
Right.
over the past week. Just like the news media loves shit like that, because then it's getting people to, it's getting more viewers and more clicks and everything. And just how like the I'm not trying to sound like a MAGA Republican, but like the media does sort of but even, I mean, that side of it too, they all just prey on like our fear and terrible stuff happening, because that's what people are drawn to then. And so like, he's sort of going on these crazy tirades and stuff, and then the ratings go up, and it's like they want these ratings, so they kind of want this to keep happening, and over anything else.
But while the guy is like actually he's spilling all the like real truth too about everything, even they don't care because of the ratings, and the guy's willing to go. He goes like, you think it's gonna be unstoppable. You think like, but God, I want to rewatch this movie, man. Jeez. Like you think it's gonna, there's nothing that's gonna stop this force. But then he goes all the way to the top, to Ned Beatty, right? I believe. Yeah, and this guy who is the head of everything, like one of those, kind of like what Succession is about, like the guy who owns the company who owns the network, which is like, the one percenter, one of the guys who runs the country, that sort of thing, which I love, which is what I love so much about Network, is it breaks down that hierarchy so well of everything and how the country actually works. and that's what's like the most amazing thing about this movie is that like it shows that like while the media has like its power to an extent, and then this guy who just Ned Beatty who breaks down how everything works and like just breaks it down is like you are destroying the fabric of everything, not in a way of like, oh, I want to make no, you are destroying my wealth. No, you're not. You are destroying the system that and how it works, and you are fucking it up for everyone, basically. You know, in almost a way that like in a crushing, but like I don't know, like breaking it down a way that like really changed how I perceive everything, I guess.
Because the fake news media.
Yeah, we are now the MAGA anti-Martin Luther King podcast.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
All right. My number 4 is Miracle. The 2004 hockey movie on how Coach Herb Brooks beat. I always have something where we're beating the Russians on this list.
Yeah, we're very anti-Russian.
Yes. As Kurt Russell says in Miracle, I am so tired of hearing what a great hockey team the Soviets have. This is a movie I grew up with and watched endlessly. And I don't even like hockey at all. Much like how in Moneyball, I don't like baseball really at all, but like Moneyball gets me to like baseball. Like Miracle as a kid got me kind of into hockey, and mainly the fact that Kurt Russell is so good in Miracle. And like, I mean, we're talking about, I think I said Jack Nicholson's like the greatest American actor, but Kurt Russell is like, I mean, Kurt Russell's like, you'll see him on the Super Bowl and he's like announcing the players, right? And you can't think of a better fit of a guy to announce players at a Super Bowl than Kurt Russell. Like he is such an American actor, and a perfect guy to be in Miracle as the coach of this hockey team. I mean, without Kurt Russell, this movie like would not exist or at all. But like I feel like it's somewhat remembered and iconic because of Kurt Russell and because he has so many like great speeches in it, and he's so dialed in this movie. Yeah,
nice. This is one I think we've talked about on the podcast before that I have not seen, and
oh really
it's kind of out of protest. This is one that I just never saw when I was younger when it came out, and then as I get older I just remember saying like people talk about Miracle, and I was like, oh yeah, I haven't seen that. And then the absolute like vitriol that I receive because I haven't seen Disney's The Miracle, Miracle on Ice. It's like insane. So I would get so annoyed with people freaking out that I haven't seen Miracle that I kind of like, I'm never going to see it now. And I just honestly over the years, it keeps coming up. There's like other people talk about it.
Now on my American Movies podcast.
Yeah. Now you bring it up here. Yeah. Yeah. It's also like, it's definitely something that I will probably see at some point. And then, and it's just been like a subconscious thing of like, oh, I don't want to watch that because everybody just freaks out that I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I mean, it's overall, I'd say not that great of a movie. But like, I just love like these sports movies that are kind of all about the same thing, sort of, that just give these actors a vehicle to play coaches. I love it. That's why I like Remember the Titans, is because Denzel Washington gets to play a football coach in it, and he's just so damn good. So that's mainly what I like.
Nice. Yeah. I guess I know there's like the cultural aspect of it too. It was a big deal at the time for the US to beat the Russians. I just don't, I guess, I just personally don't get as into like the uplifting sports movie like this as much. It doesn't, because at the end of the day, I've been, I am a sports fan, but I also, I don't get those feelings that like my life changes at all if a sports team wins a game or not. But yeah, I think that I'm just trying to, diagnose why I haven't gotten
Watched
into
Miracle.
this movie. So my number 3 is a high school movie again, and it's Mean Girls.
Oh wow.
Yeah, Mean Girls. I feel like this is one of our more, last time sort of brought up The Breakfast Club, which is like the classic American high school movie. And I feel like Mean Girls is when we were growing up, was like really big high school movie, sort of probably the next one after like Clueless, maybe like the next really big one.
Yeah, it was like Superbad was for guys, but like because it's so raunchy, but everyone could get into Mean Girls. Mean Girls was like girls first, but then all of a sudden every guy was also like, which is kind of stupid because everyone was like acting like, I actually, like Mean Girls as a guy, which just shows how like behind maybe some of the we were at the time, or like people. But like I remember like, oh, I'm guilty liking Mean Girls. It's like, well, Mean Girls is clearly like for everybody, like it's not just a girl movie.
Yeah, I mean it's a very funny movie, and it's starring these I feel like big young stars of the time too. Big American star like Lindsay Lohan, Rachel McAdams, who were just in a ton of things back then. And then it's also like Tina Fey and Amy Poehler, who at this time are also becoming like the huge major stars that they are. And yeah, it just has to do with the just the classic American high school dynamic of I think the title of like the book is like what is it, like Queen Bees, Drama Queens, and Wannabes or something like that.
Like the book, the Burn book that they
no, like the
that
book that
the book that's
the
based
movie was
off of?
based off
Oh,
of. Yeah.
okay.
Queen Bees and Wannabes. That's what it is. Helping your daughter survive cliques, gossip, boyfriends, and other realities of adolescence.
Ooh, yeah. Which is I feel like maybe like an under talked about thing, or like something that like specifically women have to like really prepare for, or just anybody in high school, anyone, like no one's prepared enough for like the clickiness of like school life and how it's gonna be, you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and so I think that this really goes all into like that aspect of it. And then Lindsay Lohan like has these other friends that aren't as cool or popular. And so yeah, it goes into that dynamic too of like starting to be in the popular crowd, and just like the friendship dynamics of that. And and I just think it's like a classic American comedy. About
I would
school.
also like I said with Tropic Thunder, it would be in my untouchable top 5 2000s comedy. It's like you can't touch it. It's like right up there. And it's not just like a really funny movie. Like I always like like it always makes you want to be a better person by the end of it, I think.
Yeah, there is like a good message behind it too. And I just think this is one that's kind of it's still so much a part of like our modern culture now, and I feel like it's already kind of like a classic. So yeah, the Plastics. Yeah, that's right. That's their their clique.
Right. Okay. My number 3 is Robert Altman's Nashville. Have you seen Nashville?
No, I haven't seen Nashville. It's a travesty. Yeah.
You'd like Nashville. Yeah, I remember like, and this is what I was talking about, like the era of like the Easy Riders, Raging Bull, like 1970s type, like De Palma, Altman, Coppola, Cassavetes, Scorsese, all these like filmmakers of the time in America that were like following up, like that were changing everything. That were not, it was not anymore just all like the way films were being made in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, which is so by the book in a way, you could say, and studio controlled, I think is the word, like producer controlled, where like our tourism in America really started to exist. And Altman was one of the biggest ones. And like Nashville is one of his best films for sure. And Nashville's not only like, it's very political, I would say, like it's very political, and it's very countercultural. And it just kind of like, I don't know, which Altmans have you seen?
Miss Miller, The Player, The Long Goodbye.
The Long Goodbye. Okay.
Yep.
Shortcuts, maybe.
I haven't seen Shortcuts. No.
Okay, so you haven't seen like this style then, like it's like the Altman style of like the interweaving of like between unlimited like many characters, kind of like Paul Thomas Anderson's Magnolia is like an Altman kind of.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So if you ever watch Nashville or Shortcuts, you are following like 8 to 10 different characters. And Nashville, I don't even remember how it is, but basically Nashville is that, but it is the music scene essentially in Nashville. And like I just couldn't help but think of it when thinking of an American movie. And there's a lot of great music, of course, in it. A lot of good scenes of people recording music or playing music, and a lot of it is featuring a lot of this is about the characters are musicians. This movie features like people like Shelley Duvall, Jeff Goldblum, David Arkin, Ned Beatty. Ned Beatty's in this one as well. And I believe like one of the last in a Woodstock manner, like one of the last scenes of this movie, it's a whole group of people singing about like being free and stuff like that. And it just is reminiscent of the countercultural movement in America. And this movie's about so much, that's why I can't really it's hard for me to really break it down here. And also it's been a little bit since I've seen it, and I've seen it like maybe 2 or 3 times, but it's not enough because it's a very dense, ambitious movie. But it's very much worth the watch. It's it's cool. 160 minutes.
Yeah, wow, that's a big one.
Robert Altman went very hard as a director.
Yeah, I've heard only like amazing things. It's one of those movies I've only heard like really amazing things about it.
Yeah. You'd like it a lot, especially the musical element of it. It's just a vibe. Yeah, and the era of it you would like too.
Cool. All right, we're down to the top 2 now. And my number 2, promise my number 1 isn't one that we've talked about this much, but my number 2 is The Social Network. Which I know we've talked about ad nauseum at this point.
Network and The Social Network.
And The Social Network. Yes.
All right. So here's another thing I thought about The Social Network.
As if we haven't talked about it enough.
Right. Yeah. No, I have no more new ideas, but yeah, I mean, I can't help it. I do agree. I mean, it is a good pick.
Yeah. I mean, this is just like the quintessential movie about our modern age, I think.
Right. Yeah. It's like the modern success story. Yeah.
Yeah. Sort of, I mean, that's what again, like this is also based off a book, The Accidental Billionaires or whatever. It's just this time where these just nerds who were, creating these platforms just became the rulers of the earth. And and just how much it like has shaped everything today. So yeah, I think they were over time. There will be probably so many more movies made about like this time frame in history. But yeah, this is like the quintessential American movie about this major event in history that started at Harvard in the U.S.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also David Fincher and Aaron Sorkin, two great American filmmakers.
Yes.
That yeah. So yeah, that's The Social Network, my number 2. If you want to hear more about it, go watch every other episode that we've done.
All right, my number 2, we actually we've done a revisited episode on this movie too. My number 2 is The Godfather.
Nice.
Which is like, I feel like it's an obvious one. But like, man, I don't know. I guess my main reasoning for doing The Godfather is on this list is because I feel like The Godfather like kind of represents in a way like sort of what everyone's trying to do, which is make all their sons be in their crime family and then and murdering Luca Brasi. But no, seriously, like I feel like everyone's trying to create their own little world within America. I feel like maybe everyone knows that we're all on our own, that it's not like we're not like this. Oh, wow. Classic.
Look at that
Classic
poll.
background. Yeah. Classic. Salazzo killed Luca Brasi. Yeah. Like everyone's trying to create their own little world, which is like what Don Corleone really represents, is that Don Corleone created his kingdom, which within America. And like, that's what that opening scene is about. That opening scene, he asks, it's like, why didn't you come to me first? You went to the police first and the courts and they didn't do anything for you, blah, blah, blah. It's like it's about doing it your own way. It's about not trusting the system. It's about working outside the system. And I feel like if you're not a person who's like in America, which I feel like a lot of people are, I feel like maybe you and I both are, like where you're trying to do it on your own, where that like your end all be all isn't trusting an isn't trusting that I'm gonna work a good job 9 to 5 forever and they will take good care of me. Like, if you're one of those people who knows that that's not necessarily the right path and like the best way of making your own life, if you're more entrepreneurial minded or more self-motivated, I feel like The Godfather is like the pinnacle representation of doing things not by the book, outside the system, but also holding values of doing those things, of also having a sense of respect and loyalty, family, all these like classical American values. Also the section where I feel like the section where Al Pacino, Michael Corleone, goes back to Sicily, to where his father's from, to hide for a few years, is like kind of represents like that idea of, in America, we're all like a melting pot. We all don't really have, everyone's looking for their identity beyond being an American. Like, what are my cultural roots? And I feel like that section where Michael Corleone sees his cultural roots is where he discovers his destiny and who he is and who he wants to be and all that stuff. So just, there's a lot of like things in The Godfather that I find like a plot just to tell everyone here, But there's just so many layers to it and ways you can like, so many stories you can tell about the mafia and so much framing you can do with it,
All right, my number 1 then is just when you thought that all of my movies were going to be white movies, and my number 1 is Do the Right Thing, Spike Lee. So yeah, I was excited when you brought up another Spike Lee, because that's obviously Malcolm X is a great one for this list too. But yeah, I went with Do the Right Thing. And I think we've talked a lot about Midwest and, these people in flyover states. But really, the real America is New York City. So fuck all that other shit,
The two guys who are nowhere near it.
Yeah.
Joe's Pizza.
New York
Madison
City,
Square
1989.
Garden,
Yeah, the
Brooklyn,
Garden,
Manhattan.
Rucker Park. We're talking the Bronx, the Yankees, Mickey Mantle,
Queensbridge.
The Comedy Cellar, the Guggenheim.
The Comedy Cellar is really where you work out all your material.
Yeah. Greenwich Village, Yeah, Bob Dylan is from Minnesota, but he got his start in New York, baby. So yeah, what's more American than New York? And Do the Right Thing. But yeah, this is in all seriousness. This is a look into New York City on a single day, where you have these people from different backgrounds.
And you were saying like the high school movie, but like this is like the neighborhood movie.
The neighborhood, yeah. People in a New York neighborhood, all jeez, I think that was on mine. Fireworks just popping off out of nowhere. Freaked me out for a second.
At 1 in the afternoon in Colorado, huh?
Yeah. That's speaking of neighborhoods, that's my neighborhood. That's what we do here. Shooting off fireworks on a random Sunday. Yeah. But yeah, this is an American story that, wow, this was super relevant over the past few years too, with everything that happened. It's really crazy too, actually. I remember watching this during quarantine and just thinking it was wild. About how this movie wasn't made like today. Like it was
and it still breaks it down as good as any like movie does, like when we're talking race relations and people dealing with each other and stuff, and the way you see everyone's perspective, you know what I mean? Like, even though, is it Sal's Pizzeria?
I think so, yeah.
Like, even though Sal is like such a racist asshole, and it like you just like, there's that scene where he talks about how much his pizzeria means to him and breaks down the history behind it, and you can't help but like feel that, and like it, the American small businessman that's just trying to get by and worked his whole life just to make this pizzeria work, you know what I mean? And how the neighborhood functions as such a element to the success of that, and the fact that now he's dealing with different people in that neighborhood, and and like I feel like that's a thing you hear about a lot in like this country, and like specifically in different cities, and like I hear about it in LA a lot all the time too, where like this neighborhood used to be this way, but now it's run down with like these people now live in it. You know what I mean? This neighborhood used to be shitty, but now it's rich, filled with all these new rich people. Or now this neighborhood used to be nice, and now they flooded it with homeless people and stuff like that. And you just because there's so many neighborhoods out here that like over the years you can just hear about how everything's shifted everywhere, and it's such a melting pot.
Let's say it's such an American city thing to, it's like here it's, there's probably a big Italian American community at one time, and that's why Sal's like only Italian Americans on the wall and all this. And now he's dealing with, a new influx of people of different backgrounds coming.
It's like the tragedy that at the end, like, is that none of the perspectives can come together, I guess. That it all falls apart on each other. No one is that you see everyone's side, but none of the characters can. That I think is the tragedy.
Yeah, definitely. And that's Yeah, that's why it's my
Yeah,
number
I
one.
was thinking about picking this one, but I went even more hardcore with Malcolm X.
Oh yeah. Yeah, this is the Disney Spike Lee movie, not
Right.
Malcolm X.
All right, well, my number one, speaking of the submarine, in the news, my number one is Titanic.
Very relevant. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know much about it. Like I said, I don't follow the news much, but I do know that it was a bunch of billionaires, right, that went down in a submarine to try to look at Titanic this
Yeah,
past week, right?
it was like $125,000 or something to do it. One of the guys was actually he's like an explorer and a diver himself, and I think he was friends with James Cameron, because I think James Cameron he talked
Talked
about
him
him.
into doing it.
No, he didn't. No,
Oh,
James Cameron has done interviews, like he knew about this before it happened and was skeptical, because he takes it really seriously, and anytime he's done it, it's like been like really certified, and safety is like super important. But so he's been doing a ton of interviews lately
I should watch
about
those because
this. Yeah,
I'm interested in James Cameron.
and that's
Yeah.
the thing, people will talk about like, oh, who cares what this Hollywood director says about it, but it's like he actually knows
He's like
more.
the
He is an expert.
Titanic guy. Yeah,
He
exactly.
knows more about this than 99% of the population.
Right.
Yeah, so anyway, yeah, so Titanic is
Yeah. I
your
mean, I'm
number
not
one.
sure
Yeah.
exactly if like sometimes I wonder like how far they went when making this movie. Like I forget because there's some crazy facts. I could be wrong, but like maybe they fucking like actually filmed the real Titanic in the opening scene. That's something
Yeah,
someone would have to check me on. Whether James Cameron actually went down for Titanic, um, and
I
if
feel like they did, but
right, I feel like
yeah,
they did because all you hear about this movie is how crazy and how far they went to make it.
yeah.
Yeah,
And what I didn't realize until this whole submarine thing is that they didn't even discover where the wreckage was until the 80s. It was like
mm,
1986 or something. So
yeah.
not too long before James Cameron probably started making the movie.
I mean, I like totally understand like this obsession and fascination with like this giant massive ship at the bottom of the water that used to hold all these like rich people in it, and the
Hmm.
fact that you can go down and see it, and this fascination with picturing like what the lives of the people were like who were actually on the ship and stuff like that. I like totally get that. Yeah,
Yeah.
and like what's crazy like James Cameron was obsessed with Titanic, and um what's his and what is it, Bill Paxton kind of plays this character who kind of bookends Titanic, who is this kind of rich guy who's diving down to look for things in Titanic, specifically like Kate Winslet's like diamond. um and it just kind of feels like that is like he's playing like a version of James Cameron who's looking and searching and obsessed with Titanic. Yeah, I mean, on top of that, like Titanic's just very. It's probably one of the most ambitious movies ever made, if not the most. It features like one of our great American actors in his like you at his most youthful, um, with one of those American names, Jack Dawson. Have you ever been to
Yeah.
Have you ever been to Wisconsin and ice fished in Wisconsin? That's Jack Dawson in this movie. Um, and like just like everything from like the music, and like how like Hollywood this is an Oscar baity, but in the best way. and the I'm the king of the world, and just this like just this dream like imagination that is surrounds this like historical event, like the fact that like there's this fiction, this really dreamlike fictionalized story built around this kind of historical event that's built all from this like this guy who just made action movies before this, who just had this incredible fascination with this. Like, I don't know, there's just something about this like that I'm just endlessly fascinated by this movie. Like there's really so much more to it to appreciate than how everyone's just can't stop like thinking endlessly about like, oh my god, like Jack and Rose are so annoying, and like, oh, the dialogue's like so corny, and like the acting's not good or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like when there's just so much more going on, like how can you not like see how giant this is, and the scale of this, and just how like how much this movie's trying to be. It's just it's insane. It's about like, this movie is about like dreams and like fat and wonder and classism and you know, going like, it's about the American dream. You know, all these people are going to America for a better life, whether they are rich or poor. Yeah, like there's just something about Titanic, man.
Yeah, I mean, this was a huge deal at the time. Like
Yeah.
we were pretty young when this came out, but I still remember like some of my early memories of or you know, of this. And I did look up, it was the actual Titanic,
Which is insane. Like it's
That's-
insane.
that's why it's like like you said, like one of the riskiest
Right.
things to do.
I mean, that just gives you goosebumps, because as you're watching these opening scenes, you are looking at actual Titanic and exterior footage. They go into the ship, and it could not look more real. Yeah.
So it says so James Cameron was like, look, we've got to do this whole opening where they're exploring the Titanic and they find the diamond. So we're going to have all these shots of the ship. Now we can either do them with elaborate models and CG and all that, which will cost X amount of money, or we can spend X plus 30% and go shoot at the real wreck.
Oh
And
my god.
so they shot at the real wreck 12 times in 1995. And it even says here, like, one small flaw in the superstructure would mean instant death for everyone on board. So it's just like, and even at one of the dives, they collided with the hull of the ship that
Wow.
partially damaged the submersible they were in. And it's just, now we know how like this ship in 2023 imploded going down there, and how far we've come like technologically since then. And insane.
That's absolutely insane. And I think an under talked about filmmaking thing that happened. Like, you know, like really not talked about, not appreciated enough. And like I said, when people look back on Titanic, they'll be like, gosh, Leo and Kate Winslet are so bad. And that's what they talk about, when it's like, gosh, you guys don't appreciate like how much went into making this movie. It's insane. And they don't do that anymore at all.
I mean, really, this is this should be up there with those other just like crazy horror stories, not horror stories, but stories of like these ambitious directors trying
like
to get this,
like a Heart of Darkness
documentary,
but like for Titanic, that sort of thing. Like, or just like a quick thing on like how risky it was to go down and film Titanic, and then like the risks they were taking and showing them actually trying to do it, and like maybe the science behind it and stuff like that would be, I mean, maybe there is something, I don't know.
I guess there probably is somewhere.
Perhaps on the DVD of Titanic they have that.
special features. Yeah. Yeah, that's that American ambition.
Yeah, it is, exactly. It is like it is that American ambition. So yeah, that's why I have Titanic as my number one.
Nice pick. Yeah. Wow. And very relevant too. Yeah. I mean, this is making me want to go back and watch that now. That's what this episode has done. I got a long list of rewatches.
Yeah. All right, but yeah, that's our top 10s for this year's top 10 American movies list for anybody who is looking for 4th of July movie podcasts. This should be your go-to.
Spend your holiday weekend listening to this episode and then checking out your favorites from here.
As you're like grilling burgers, you can have your headphones into this podcast, and then you're like, oh yeah, I gotta like IMDb that one, like burgers one hand, IMDbing it with the other, like that's what someone would be that's what someone would be doing.
Oh shit, I gotta watch As Good as It Gets. 4th of July.
I really should watch that again. Wow. Because they really sold me on it.